やえー
係我做嘅。
The director of this movie is a genius. He's known by many as Stephen Chow, and he's directed and starred in several movies in Hong Kong. So today I want to talk about Asian cinema, both in the US and in their respective countries. However, I won't be talking about Bollywood cinema today because its aspects differ greatly from the types of movies we'll be focusing on. So it's no mystery that Hollywood's the type of person that likes their cake white. Or at least multicultural enough to get the stamp of approval of representation.
Oh no, it's a multiracial TV gang, including white guys.
But when it comes to implementing foreign films where their country's minorities suddenly become the majority, it's treated more like a side course, unless given the Hollywood repackaging. For Asian cinema, it's further elaborated in the article Gnawing at the Whiteness of Cinema Studies. To relegate Asian American cinema to the margins of our discipline is an epistemological problem that truly disserves an increasingly transnational and non-white student body, whose presence demands that we halt a myopic understanding of our enterprise as unified. In simpler words, Asians get the bad end of the stick when it comes to cinema. The other problem is on the other side of the spectrum, when Hollywood creates movies that reflect off of Asian cultures, and this sometimes leads to the controversial topic of Orientalism. The idea of Western society portraying aspects of the people and culture in the East as mystical, exotic, or downright otherworldly. As said by Edward Said, Orientalism is the product of circumstances that are fundamentally, indeed radically fractious. In other words, it's childish. It was a lot worse in the early days of cinema, when women were portrayed as exotic beings while men were not portrayed that way. But with the rise of stars like Bruce Lee, we saw the rise of the celebrity martial artist. And now?
Oh, hey, look, there's an Asian guy in this movie. Wonder if he's gonna be doing any Yep, doing kung fu.
The nightmare is that if Asians keep on being depicted as martial artists, some people are gonna think that all Asians are ninjas or something like that. But the actual problem is that a constant portrayal of a stereotype might combine fiction and reality. And also leads to the problem that Asian culture in cinema is something seen through a lens, disassociating an entire race from ourselves as the viewer. So what does the Asian market say for this type of cinema? Well, one, they got a lot of martial arts movies from a lot of different countries themselves because there's a lot of different martial arts. And second, money's still being made for these quote-unquote Orientalistic films. But here's the question. Is there an Asian film that pokes holes at Americans' view of the exotic Eastern world while also being intended for Asian audiences and then later moved on to US audiences? If I could force a film into that category, there would actually be several. And a lot of them are by this guy, Stephen Chow. He's made a lot of good movies that made it to the US, but the one that started it all is the movie we'll be talking about. Shaolin Soccer. Shaolin Soccer is a weird movie, hands down. But it's a good weird movie, and personally one of my favorites of all time. A story about a former Shaolin monk teaming up with his brothers to form a soccer team. And yes, it's much crazier than it actually sounds. There's about 8 different versions, making it the Blade Runner of Hong Kong cinema. And for this video essay, we'll be focusing on both the Hong Kong release and the US release, because both these versions reveal some pretty jarring, but also interesting aspects of their respective regions. So while the original Cantonese version is technically more serious than the US edition, both versions make themselves pretty clear on what content it's trying to give. And the delivery is that in the main character's eyes, everything is kung fu. As for everyone else, not so much. But to him, anything can be solved by kung fu. And many of the kung fu related scenes mock martial arts films while also inadvertently mocking Western cinema and their portrayal of China and kung fu. And they accomplish this just by showing how ridiculous some of this Oriental imagery is when juxtaposed against a modern day city. Except it never makes fun, but instead it makes it fun. But that's not what the movie's about. My analysis of Shaolin Soccer so far has been from an American perspective. And while it would be great to say that Shaolin Soccer is a celebration of Orientalism, it really isn't. It can just be seen that way by American audiences because that is what we have been exposed to. The style definitely references past martial art films and points out how ridiculous they are when they are put in a modern sport like soccer. However, Shaolin Soccer isn't a film about Western portrayal of Asia, considering it was originally released in Hong Kong and not the US. It's a story about classicism, especially when you take into account that the narrative is actually about a poor monk who is treated like scum by the rest of society. Someone so poor he can't even afford to buy a new pair of shoes. And it's not fame and fortune he wants, all he wants to do is just spread kung fu to the rest of the world. And it's only by him teaming up with a bunch of street bums to face against the big corporate soccer team that wins every single year in a rigged competition that he's able to do so. But in the end, he realized that the only way he can beat the corporation is by abandoning the brand shoes he wanted and using the broken up shoes he had in the beginning. So long story short, Shaolin Soccer can be seen as a message to two different societies, but at the end of the day, it's a fun, unconventional sports comedy / martial arts flick that may be a bit more clever than people give it credit for. Now, does Shaolin Soccer change the way of cinema in Hong Kong and US? Probably not, and if so, not substantially. But that's not the point of the movie. The point of the movie is to see martial artists play soccer. There's an artful joy seeing a Bruce Lee lookalike act as a goalie and then take down an entire team of football players. It's not the only point of the movie, but that's what makes it so great. Once again mocking and paying tribute to the great martial artist celebrities of the past. Both audiences can reflect from it and then take joy in the hilarity of it all. And yes, it's why Shaolin Soccer is such a fantastic film. It's able to separate fiction from reality.